standard deviation in Excel. So we're going to do it two ways. The first way is going to mimic what we did by hand. The second way is going to use Excel's function, standard deviation, to double check it. And on your project, you're going to be doing both of those things. One by mimicking what we do by hand, and the other doing this Excel function. Okay, so we'll use the data for your group work on page 14. So if you have open page 14 and you can see that table that we filled in, that's what we're going to put into Excel. Where what? If you don't have Excel, you need to get one of my computers. They all have Excel. Yeah, you have to pay for that. It's Microsoft Office. So if you haven't paid for it, then you'll have to use mine. Okay. Okay. And there is also, Brenda, you can't do it at the moment, but you could do it. There's also something called Open Office that you can load onto your computer. It's free. And it's like Excel, and you could use it later. Okay. So here we have Excel. The first thing that I'm going to do is I know I need a column for my X's, and my computer's freaking out again. I ask it to do too many things. That's the problem. So we're going to put in here X, give it a header, and the headings are just for us, the humans. Excel could care less, right? You put whatever you want in there, and it's going to ignore it because it's just text to it. So in the next column, I want my X squared, so I'm going to put. Do you see that table on page 14 that we did for our group work? That's what I'm trying to mimic. So I'm going to type in the -1, just like it's on there. 1, 2, 5, 10, and 50. This is pretty much what we were given for our table, right? The rest of it we filled in. I'm going to click on that column and insert a column to the left because I want to label stuff. So I'm this down at the bottom. Some of the X's and then the squared sum. If I come to in between, I can double click right there and it'll adjust my column width for me. Okay, how can I calculate this -1 squared without having to do it myself? How can I make Excel figure it out for me? What's the first thing I have to type in? Equals, good. So start with equals. And then?
Left parentheses.
Okay.
Select the cell to the left of it.
Okay, click on that cell. Good.
Close parentheses.
Sure. We don't really need them on this one, but it's okay. We can put it. It won't hurt anything. Yeah. How do you do squared? Anyone know?
Times itself.
You could multiply it by itself. That would work. You can also do the caret, which is right above the 6 on your keyboard. And then 2. That means 2 the second power. And that's what we're after for squared. Okay. Do y'all see that? I have equals. I clicked on the B2 cell, which is where my data was. And then I put caret 2. So squared. Push enter and it came to 1. Did I expect that? -1 squared is 1? Oh, good. Okay. So now I'm not going to do any more work. I'm going to drag and let Excel figure it all out. Drag that down. Did it square them all correctly? Look at your paper because you already calculated this one so we can really double check ourselves easily. Yeah. So it matches, right? We had 2,500 for 50 squared. Okay, now I also need, remember on our table we did these 2 boxes and we did this box. So how can I get the sum of the X squareds? Anyone know? If I click on number 1, if you have a long list, which you'll have in just a minute, you might want to use Control Shift down arrow. Click on your first item, then Control Shift down arrow. It'll select all your data in the column. And then I want to do the sum, so I'm going to come over here to the sum button, the summation, the funny looking E. Click on it, and it's going to put the sum right there at the bottom for me. The 2631. Does that match what you have on your sheet? Okay, I'll do it again. It's okay. So I click on the first cell, and then I'm holding down Control, Shift, and then I'm pushing the down arrow, and it selects all of it. I have too much here though, so let me back up a set. Delete that. So start on 1, Control, Shift, down arrow. It selects all my data, and then I come over here to the summation. It's a quick formula on your top bar somewhere. Do you see it? Okay. Click that, and it puts the sum right at the bottom of that list. That's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. I learned that one last semester. I didn't know it before. Now I want to do the same thing on my X's. I want to add them up. So I'm going to click my first X, Control, Shift, down arrow. It selects all my data. And then I want to do the sum again. Sum. I got 67. Okay. Next thing I want to do is the squared sum. So that right up above the sum that I did, I want to square it. So it's going to be equals, what should I do? Click on that one, and it's B8. Good. I want to square it. Caret 2. There, 4489. Is that what we got on paper? It looks like it. Okay, Haley and I are going to come around so that you can all get to this point. Would you like me to show my formulas on the screen? Would that be better than the data view? I think probably. Control tilde, so I'm doing that. There's my formulas. Okay. Okay, now what we need to do is do the stats calculations, but we're going to do little piece by little piece, just like you do when you're putting it into your calculator. We're going to do the same thing in Excel. Excel can handle a couple of operations at a time in a box, but the order of operations are really funky, so it's better for you to do each piece in the right order and then put them together as you go, just like you do on your calculator. So let's start off, and I'm going to call them really technical math terms, so try to keep up with me on this. Little divide. That's what I'm going to do first. When you look at that problem, do you see the little division? Look at your formula on page 14. Remember that formula? Remember this part right here? That's what I'm calling the little divide. Okay, because this is the big divide right down here, the over n minus 1. Okay, so we're going to do the little divide. So that will be what divided by what? Remember, it's the sum of the x's and then it's squared. So it's our squared sum, right?
So that divided by the number of data sets.
Yes. And while we're at it, we should probably calculate that, huh? So I'm going to insert here. And I need 2 because I want to do n minus 1 as well. So I want to calculate what is my n, and I want my n minus 1 before I do my little divide. So how do I figure out n? Do you remember?
It's the number of samples.
N's the number of data points I have. Yeah. So how do I calculate that? Because I want to use Excel because in a minute you're going to use a big data set and you don't want to sit and count every one of them. I just gave you a hint. Count. Equals count. Left parentheses, select your cells. right parenthesis, enter. So I got 6. We expected that, right? Okay, so if I click on that cell, you can see up at the top what the function is. Can you all read that? Equals count. And then I selected the cells, all the cells that had data, just the ones with data, and then pushed enter. And it happened to be B2 through B7. Okay, and then to get n minus 1, how will I do that? I want to be really lazy and let Excel calculate. Equals, click the 6, and then put minus 1. Okay, then it comes to 5. Yes, that's what it ended up being, yeah. B10 minus 1. And now, am I ready for the little divide in the formula? Yeah, so we should keep going back and forth to the formula. Let's see if I can do it like this. Oh, look at that. We're home free now. Okay, so the little divide is that part I circled. That's what I'm trying to do. It's the sum of the x's first and then square second. Which one is that from my paper here, from my Excel sheet? Is it squared sum? This one right here? Okay, so I'm going to do equals first, click on the squared sum, divided by, and I want to divide by n, so I'm glad I labeled them, divided by n. Okay, so I'm just doing a little division here from my formula, so you just have to pay attention to which value goes where in your formula. Okay, are you all caught up to this point? Okay. If you are, take a little breather. If you are, 48 something? 748.16 repeating. Okay, that was my little divide. Now, what's next by order of operations? I'm looking at my formula. What's next by order of operations? That's subtract. Good. So I'm taking the squared first and then some minus this little divide. Squared first. I'm putting a really fancy heading for it, the subtraction. So I want to do the squared first and then some. That's this one over here, the 2631, minus the one I just got, the little divide. So how do I do that? Equals. Click on it or put in C8 for this one. Good. And then minus, and then click that little divide right above it. Good. Push enter. Did you get what I got? How many need me to come by? Anybody? You getting it? Oh, good. We're getting better. You didn't get it? Here, it's C8 minus B12 if you want to double check. While she's thinking about that, what do we have to do next? The big divide. Good. Okay, and for the big divide, what are we doing? Equals first. The 1882 one, click on it. Divided by n minus 1, right? So click on the one that has the 5 in it right now. Okay, push enter. Did you get 376.57-ish? Yes? Okay, what's the last thing we have to do now from our formula? Square root, good. Anyone know how to do square root in Excel? It's really hard. You go like this, equals SQRT, parenthesis, and then click on the big divide. Oh, what did we get? Okay, anyone need me? Because if you have a calculator and you're typing in every single data item and you've got 600 of them, what if you mess one up? Oh my gosh, I would much rather have it on Excel for a large data set, because then I can see all my numbers, I can verify I got them entered correctly, I can make graphs, I can make histograms, I can do whatever I want with it. Small data set, I would use a calculator. Big data set, I would use Excel. Okay, so that's the beauty of it. We have the square root. We want to calculate it, the standard deviation, that was the last part I told you. Calculate it using Excel's function. Excel has a function, and it goes like this. Equals, what are we calculating? Standard deviation. Do you remember how I've been abbreviating it? STDEV. They don't put two D's, but STDEV. Put parenthesis, and then guess what? You're just going to select your numbers, your data points, just the data, not the sum. Right paren, enter, and there it is. Bam. Okay, I'm going to sit on it so you can see the function up at the top. Do you see it there? STDEV, and then the range of numbers. That's how you calculate it. Okay. Okay, so 2 ways we verified. How many times have we done this standard deviation? Like far too many, right? Okay, I want you to do a couple of things. I want you to try, let's see if I can get over to the right page here. If I can write on here. Try changing the 50 in your data set to these values. Change it to a 10, and then a 1,
To save this
and then a 500. You may save this if you have a jump drive, or if you want to save it on the computer and then email it to yourself. You can do that, because then you'll have all the formulas that we worked on together. But what I want you to do is just go in here where it says 50, click on that cell. Oops, I shouldn't have done that. Okay, click on the 50. I'm going to change it to 10. And everything should adjust. When I push enter, everything changed. Do you see that? So I want you to just experiment a little bit. So on that one I just changed to a 10, I want to change it to a 1, and I want to change it to a 500. I want to see what happens to my standard deviation when I change just one of the values, but I'm making it kind of extreme, what my changes are. So try changing it like that. You can always change it back to a 50 when you're done and have your original set of data. But you do not need to email this to me.